There is a rule that Rothschild mothers taught their children that has nothing to do with banking, nothing to do with investments, and nothing to do with the kind of wealth most people spend their whole lives chasing. It is a household rule. 3 numbers, written in a small notebook, kept at a kitchen table. And it is the reason that families' wealth did not just grow, it stayed. Most people hear the name Rothschild and they think of banks, of empires, of power so large it feels untouchable. But almost no one asks what was being taught inside their homes. Almost no one asks what their mothers were saying to their daughters at the kitchen table before anyone was old enough to open a single account or sign a single document. That is where the real teaching lived, not in the boardroom, in the home. And here is what I want you to understand before we go any further. The reason most families cannot hold money, the reason you can work hard, earn well, save something, and still watch it slip through your fingers by the end of the month is not because of what you are doing wrong outside the home. It is because of what was never taught inside it. There is a name for this in our tradition: the leaking home. A household where money enters, but no rule governs what happens next. A home where everything sits in one pile, feels available, and slowly, quietly disappears. You are not broken. You were simply never handed the framework that changes everything. My grandmother kept a small, folded piece of paper in the pocket of her apron. I remember it from the time I was very small. 3 numbers, always the same. I asked her once what it meant, and she smiled the way she always smiled when she was about to say something she had already said 1,000 times and still meant completely. She said, "This is my house rule. 3 and 3 and 3. Your great-grandmother gave it to me. Her mother gave it to her. And one day, you will give it to yours." I did not understand it yet, but I remembered it. Because what she was carrying in that apron pocket was not a budget. It was not a finance plan. It was the architecture of a home that knew how to hold what it was given. The Rothschild family is the most studied, wealthy Jewish family in modern history. But the studies always begin too late. They begin with the banks, the alliances, the strategy. They never begin with the mothers. They never begin with what was being passed, quietly and deliberately, from a woman's hands to her daughter's understanding, inside the home, before the world ever saw a single result. The 3-3-3 rule is built on 3 principles, each one carrying the number 3. Each one lived inside the household, not outside it. Let me give you the first one. The first 3 is this: never spend new money within 3 days of receiving it. When money arrives, a paycheck, a gift, a windfall, anything, it does not move for 3 days. It sits. It cools. Imagine a wallet placed on the kitchen counter, coins resting beside it, a drawer slowly closing over both. 3 days. This is not waiting out of indecision. This is a deliberate cooling rule. In the Talmud, there is a teaching that a person must not act on a matter while their heart is still stirred. And the heart is always stirred when money arrives. There is an energy that comes with new money: excitement, relief, urgency, the sudden awareness of everything you have been wanting. That energy is not wisdom. That energy is spending dressed up as need. My grandmother called it hot money. She would say, "Money that arrives hot must be set down to cool." She meant it literally. She would place whatever came in, any amount, in the kitchen drawer beside the bread box, and she would not touch it for 3 days. Not because she was rigid, because she knew that the version of herself who waited 3 days made entirely different decisions than the version who acted immediately. The 3-day pause is the first wall between a leaking home and a home that holds. Try it tonight. Whatever comes to you next, your next payment, your next transfer, any amount at all, let it sit for 3 days before you make a single, non-essential decision. You will be surprised what you no longer want on the 4th day. The second 3 is this: every sum of money that enters the home is divided into 3 portions before anything else happens. Not after the bills, not after the groceries. Before. Imagine a loaf of bread on a wooden table being broken into 3 pieces, each placed in its own corner. That is the image. 3 envelopes, 3 jars, 3 corners of a drawer. The first portion is for the home's obligations, the necessities, the bills, the things the household requires to function. The second portion is for the future, Savings, something set aside for the next generation. The money that does not get touched because it is not for now. It is for what comes after now. The third portion is for tzedakah, giving. This is the piece that most people outside our tradition find strange. Why give when you are not yet wealthy? Because in Jewish home wisdom, the third envelope is not charity in the way most people understand that word. It is the activation of flow. My grandmother taught me that a closed hand cannot receive. She said, a home that only takes in and never releases becomes like a room with no windows. The air grows stale. The third envelope keeps the air moving. Rothschild mothers reportedly kept physical envelopes, visible, labeled, sitting on the kitchen shelf where the whole family could see them. This was intentional. Money that is divided before it is spent stops feeling like a single pile that can be consumed all at once. The single pile household is the leaking home's closest companion. When everything sits together, everything feels available. When everything is separated, the home has order. And a home with order holds wealth in a way a disordered home simply cannot. This is not budgeting. Budgeting is a modern invention. This is architecture. This is the structure of how a household receives and holds what it is given. The second three is the wall between receiving money and consuming it. And now, the third. The third three is the one that I believe changes not just your finances, but the way you see yourself inside your family's story. The third three is this. Every money decision in the home must be seen through 3 generations, not just yours. 3. Imagine 3 pairs of hands stacked on top of each other. A grandmother's hands, weathered and careful. A mother's hands, still and certain. A child's hands, small and open. Before you spend, before you borrow, before you give anything away, you hold the decision up to that image and you ask one question. Does this serve all 3? Does this honor what came before me, sustain what I am building now, and protect what I am handing forward? The Rothschild mothers taught this as a filter, not a restriction. It was not meant to make every decision difficult. It was meant to make most decisions obvious. My grandmother refused to buy anything for the home that she could not explain to both her own mother and her own daughter, not because she needed their permission, because that question alone revealed whether the purchase was for the household or for a feeling that would pass. A new coat for the winter, she could explain that to both. A luxury purchased out of envy for what the neighbors had, she could not. The 3-generation lens cuts through the noise. In Deuteronomy, the commandment to honor is not just backward-facing, it reaches forward as well. Jewish tradition has always understood honor as a living chain. What you do now is already the inheritance you are preparing for the person who comes after you. Most people make money decisions only for themselves, sometimes for their immediate household, almost never for the generation that has not yet arrived. And then they wonder why the wealth does not accumulate. It does not accumulate because it is only ever being decided for now. The third 3 asks you to hold a longer vision, not an impossible one, not a complicated one, just 3 pairs of hands, your mother's, yours, your child's. And the question, does this serve the chain? Here is what I want you to do tonight. Find 3 small containers. It does not matter what they are. 3 jars from the kitchen, 3 envelopes from a drawer, 3 small boxes, anything. Label the first one, now. Label the second one, later. Label the third one, forward. The next time money enters your home, any amount, it does not matter how small, divide it before you spend a single coin. Something into now, something into later, something into forward. You are not building a Rothschild bank account tonight. You are building a Rothschild home. And a Rothschild home is where it always began. Not in the vaults, at the kitchen table, with a mother's hands and a household rule that traveled down through generations because it was true and it worked. And the families who lived by it knew something the rest of the world had not yet been told. If something shifted in you while you were listening to this, I want you to write in the comments, I am building a 3-generation home. Write it as a declaration. In our tradition, speech is not decoration. Speech creates. God spoke the world into existence. When you declare something with genuine intention, you are not just writing a comment, You are beginning something real. Say it if you need to say it out loud. Write it somewhere you will see it tomorrow morning. Because the moment you name what you are building, the building has already begun. If this is the first time you have found this channel, come back. Every week I share what was taught inside Jewish homes. Not from a pulpit, not from a business school, but from the kitchen, the bedroom, the front door, the Friday night table. The wisdom that was passed in whispers between mothers and daughters for generations is here, and it belongs to you now. And next week, I want to show you something specific. There is an object that Rothschild mothers kept at the front door of their homes. Something so small most people walk past it without a second thought. And what it was placed there to do will change the way you see your own entrance forever. Until then, may your home be a place that holds what it is given. May your hands be open enough to give and strong enough to keep. And may the wisdom of your mothers and their mothers before them rest in your household and never leave it.